This was 18 minutes before President Trump actually, 6:03 p.m. All of this took place. This was 18 minutes before President Trump actually took the stage at 6:03 p.m. President Trump was shot in the face at 6:11 p.m. This has all been reported. These timelines. Why do you not have a timeline?
Because it's not the timeline is going to be critical for the after action report. Obviously, we're conducting an investigation with the FBI. We have been deferential to the FBI in terms of what has been released to the media. I was present for one press briefing on the night of Saturday night, July 13th, and we've been deferential to the FBI on that. So I would refer you to the FBI, the timelines that you're quoting. I just want to be clear on the record. To my knowledge and belief, I don't have a minute-by-minute timeline. I've had multiple briefings about what these interviews have gleaned, but they're from the perspective of PSP investigating homicide and the 2 attempted homicides.
Thank you, Colonel. During the event, at what point in the day was someone from your team first made aware that there was a potential suspicious person or possible threat?
So based on my knowledge and belief, that information related to the command post from Butler ESU in terms of crooks was the first time that I'm aware of. Again, keeping in mind, I've heard estimates that there were 13,000 people there. There were multiple people identified as suspicious, several that were identified in that area.
Yes, thank you. Now, you stated before in your questions that you haven't seen an operation plan, but didn't your team participate, and why haven't you seen the plan?
So as my answer prior on the record, I've asked for it. The state police has asked for it. We have yet to receive it. And my understanding is that our walkthrough with our commanders and our area commander was to delineate what our responsibilities were, and we endeavored to fulfill those responsibilities.
Who was the Secret Service agent in charge of the advance team?
I don't know the name of the agent.
How was PSP supposed to communicate with Secret Service on the advance team?
Immediately in the planning leading up to it. So my understanding is, as is typical, we were notified by email on July 5th. The meeting on July 8th, Monday, was to get all of those partners together to exchange information and how they could communicate with one another, and then the planning took place from there.
Could you provide our committee a copy of all those communications, Colonel Pierce?
So I will check with our legal counsel. I mean, Pennsylvania has multiple state statutes that cover investigative plans or law enforcement sensitive information.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, one more thing, if I may. Trump's Secret Service protection could be removed under Benny Thompson's proposed legislation. This legislation was introduced while the politically weaponized government was prosecuting former President Donald Trump. This would leave him at risk. I'd also like to state for the record for this committee that over 140 inmates are murdered in prison every single year. This is a dangerous place, prison is, and of course, 8% of violence in prison leads to murder of inmates. This legislation is reckless, and the minority ranking member needs to withdraw this legislation that would lead to the murder of President Trump.
Ladies, time has expired. I now recognize. Well, we're not going to debate.
You think that statement should be made when the ranking member is here, so he can at least address it?
He made his point earlier about his bill. There's a difference of opinion, I suppose. But we're just y'all are out. Okay. I now recognize Mr. Lalotta for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. 10 days ago.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman.
10 days ago, a 20-year-old with no military or law enforcement training, with no more than about $1,000 worth of equipment, and apparently working alone, thwarted the United States Secret Service, an agency with a $3 billion budget and about 8,000 personnel. In the early phases of this investigation, the Secret Service is clear. The Secret Service exhibited poor tactics, including substandard two-way communications with state and local PD. They displayed a lack of strategy, including not employing drones to surveil the risks to President Trump and the crowd. And since July 13th, the Department of Homeland Security and the Secret Service, evidenced by them not being here today, has avoided accountability by, among other things, avoiding hearings like this. The attempted assassination of former President Trump, the leading candidate for president in 2024, shocked the conscience of nearly every American, regardless of party affiliation. We, the members of the Homeland Security Committee from both sides of the aisle, are here today to ask questions and about those who are in charge that day, to hold the Secret Service accountable, but more importantly, to ensure this never happens again. Chairman, thank you for hosting this hearing. Colonel Paris, you're the commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police Department.
Yes, sir.
And your testimony, sir, is that at approximately 25 minutes, and won't hold you to the exacts, but approximately 25 minutes before the first shots were fired, that local law enforcement officers identified Crooks as suspicious?
As suspicious, yes, sir.
And what was it that led those officers to conclude that Crooks was suspicious?
My understanding was that he was milling about, and he stood out to them because he never made his way to a point of ingress to the venue in defense of possible hypotheses. Could have been waiting for somebody, could have been delayed, but he stood out to them, and they, from their vantage point at the AGR building, identified him as suspicious.
That was 62 minutes prior, as I understand the timeline. That first one, it was 25 minutes prior for the rangefinder.
Thank you, Chairman. And Commissioner, with respect to him being suspicious, were there other folks who were also in the crowd identified as suspicious by law enforcement?
I have been briefed that, yes, there were multiple individuals, which would be consistent with normal operations for a detail like this that are identified as suspicious.
Can we take that as a single-digit number of other folks?
The number that I was briefed on was single digit, but I can't say definitively that I was.
What number were you briefed on, Colonel?
Excuse me.
What number were you briefed on?
I believe I was briefed on an additional 3 individuals.
Okay, so Crooks plus 3. My understanding is you had about 30 Pennsylvania State Police officers at the time of the rally?
That were assigned to the detail, both responsibilities of the detail, yes, sir.
And were all of them assigned to your area of the perimeter, not the interior where the Secret Service held the most jurisdiction?
I'm confused by your question, sir.
My understanding, what the committee has been told, is there were 2 layers of defense of President Trump. One, the interior, which the Secret Service held the most domain over, and 2, the exterior perimeter, which had ceded a lot of authorities to state and local. Is that your understanding as well, Colonel?
So I don't want to get convoluted with the different perimeters. I'm familiar that there was a VIP seating area up front. When I refer to the secure perimeter, I'm talking about the fencing that goes around the Butler County Farm Show. All of our people were detailed at various locations decided by the Secret Service inside of that.
Thanks. That leads me to the next question. If staff can cue up the Eli Crane video, that's second number 1 or 2. This is the AGR building. I and several of my colleagues were there yesterday in Butler. Kudos to Mr. Crane for getting this good video. My understanding from your prior testimony is there were 2 officers stationed or assigned, I think was your testimony, to this building?
I'm aware of 2, but I don't want to say, again, not having seen the Secret
And they were assigned, sir?
My understanding is that the Secret Service and Butler ESU had some sort of collaboration, and that was to be covered.
What was their assignment in the building, sir?
I cannot comment. I'd be remiss.
Were they assigned to be in the building?
I can't
What were
comment.
the qualifications of the people assigned to or around the building? ESU guys, SWAT guys, long guns, good tactics.
They would be, as the name implies, but I defer to their exact training. I'm not aware of it specifically.
What your understanding is through the duration of the incident to at least the first shots fired, they were entirely within the building, not on the building, sir?
I don't 100% want to say where they were the entire period.
But you don't have an understanding as to whether they were assigned to be in the building or on top of it?
I don't. I would need to see the Secret Service operations.
And would that have been left to the discretion of state and local, or would that have been left to the discretion of the Secret Service? It sounds like you're saying that would have been left to the discretion of the Secret Service.
I would say it's the Secret Service as the lead agency, just like they told us. Here's the post we want you to staff. It's the motorcade we want. I would defer to the Secret Service.
Thanks, Colonel. When in Butler yesterday, we asked the question, why weren't the 2 well-qualified ESU officers on top of the building rather than in it? And what would you say if we were told the explanation is, well, it was a hot day in Butler and there was air conditioning inside the building and not on the building? What would be your reaction to that assertion, Colonel?
I can't respond to it. I have no firsthand knowledge about it.
Was it a hot day in Butler that day?
I believe it was a warm day, yes, sir.
But you have no knowledge of whether or not the Secret Service or anybody else assigned these 2 officers to be in the building and not on it?
No, sir.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields, and we're going to go out of order because Mr. Luttrell has to get to his committee, so you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, can you pull the video back up, please? Just for clarification, that is the exact point where the shooter was positioned, correct? Looking through that window in proximity to, if you get a range fan, if you was to expose yourself outside that window, is that the shooter's position? No? And in relation to that video, where is the shooter's position at? Just further on the left side. And Mr. Paris, can you clarify something? There were ESU agents internal to the building or in proximity to the building and in that location, correct?
I don't know to that specific location, but they were assigned to the AGR building.
And once the call went out that you had a bad actor in, the agents in the building left their position to try to find that individual?
My understanding is he was on the ground, moving around the perimeter, and they moved to actively aid in the search along with additional municipal officers.
Does it make sense that ESU agents would be positioned inside the windows so they'd have a better vantage point out into where the X is, where the asset is located?
Could you ask that question again?
I mean, it makes sense to me that the ESU agents would be positioned in these windows, the windows that they're talking about in this building, so they could have better eyes on the asset, the president, instead of internal to the building, milling about. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm remiss because I don't know what the conversation was and what the responsibilities still in.
I think my concern is if we did have agents, let's just speak hypothetically here, if agents were positioned in these windows in order to provide protection for the asset, and then they were released. And I'm assuming they work in pairs, correct? There's only 2 of them or 4 of them in the building. Do we know that?
So from my briefings, there were 2.
There were 2. But to me, it would make sense that one would stay behind in order to cover the X or cover the asset, and then one would engage in activity to find the actor that they were trying to identify, correct? I think my concern is the individuals may, and I hate to say this out loud, but if we didn't do due justice and we left that asset exposed because both ESU agents went to look for a bad actor, we just gave the shooter a bowling alley.
I don't know what the responsibilities and the rules of engagement were, not having seen the Secret Service operations plan. And I'm reluctant to speculate at this point, 10 days out, sir. I would rely on the reviews yet to come.
When it comes to Secret Service, talk comms matrix here real quick. When it comes to Secret Service and the local law enforcement, the state law enforcement, I understand that they are housed in the same. Is there a common communication channel? And if so, does each agent and each officer that's working the event have, I'm going to use old terminology, do they have an avalanche call? They have a no joy. When they see something that raises the red flag, can any officer radio in, go, no, go? We are not. Hold the asset in place. We have somebody that we're looking for. And if they do or if they don't, how many people does that have to go through to get to the right actor in order to say stop?
I don't know.
Okay, we need to figure that out. Because if I'm an ESU agent in this window and I have to radio a person who has to radio somebody who has to radio somebody else to get to the main person, then to call it, the dishes are done.
I'm aware of 3 radio systems in operation, PSPs, the Secret Service, and Butler counties.
All communicating on different channels.
Technically, yes, but the integration occurs, I can only speak from PSP, our integration occurs by us having somebody inside of the Secret Service command post. Again, for an incident of this magnitude, in theory, the more people you have on the same channel, if there was a medical emergency or lost 6-year-old and everybody keys up at once, it paralyzes your communication.
I understand that, but if there's one specific channel that you can go to call an avalanche and say, which is freeze the asset, I think that would be necessary.
thing to do. I know it's hard because you poured your heart and soul into me.
Okay, let's just go on old 11 Labs and see if that's really all they probably used for this. So, upload. There we go. And let's see what we got. Yeah, looks like they didn't even really try.
Joe, are you watching? You hear this clapping? Can you see it?
I'm watching. I'm watching.
I knew it.
Enzo here. Commence mission to recapture the Magister Lab.
That was the dumbest shit ever.
incredible at this job. She was brilliant. She was tenacious. She was tough, but she cared about her district, cared about this country. Perhaps my favorite thing was her taking the 5-minute clock as a recommendation as opposed to a hard set time. But to the matter today, I just want to ask Colonel Parrish, how many times have you worked with the Secret Service on events like this in Pennsylvania?
So year to date, we're in the low 20s.
So low 20s just this year.
Yes, in an average year, it's about the same number, but given the election year, there's more.
And I'm sorry for not knowing this, but in your entire career, that would make it roughly how many times?
Dozens, I would say.
Okay. And do you find that there's for each event, despite whether it's in Philadelphia or Butler, a standard process and set of procedures that are followed every single time?
In terms of the planning
The
of it, or the
consistency of the planning of the
yes,
event?
I would say there is a consistency of the planning based on my experience. Yes.
Not much variation. There is a set plan that the Secret Service administers with its state, county, and local partners.
That's been my experience. Yes, sir.
Was there any change or deviation?
Not to my knowledge.
I benefit from so many of my colleagues on this committee who served in law enforcement, served in our military. I did not. I want to ask you a question. From the time that a law enforcement officer was hoisted up, was identified by the shooter turns his rifle on him, how long between that encounter and the first shot?
So I'm glad you asked me that question, Congressman. I'd like to clarify. So it was a matter of seconds.
Okay. Because I think earlier it might have been minutes.
Correct. And I appreciate you asking that question and allowing me to clarify it on the record. When I assigned that number, which again, I don't want to get locked into a timeline of 3 minutes before, that's probably a total number of amount of time that he was on the roof. When the one local officer hoisted the other one up and subsequently falls, releases himself after being faced with that.
Shooter
deadly
shuffles
threat.
across the roof.
He's already, I believe, close to being in his final position there.
Okay.
And I'm told it's, again, sequence of events, not a timeline based on the prior criteria laid out, but seconds after that when the first shots rang out.
That's helpful, Mr. Chairman. I would
Commence
prefer
mission
not
to
that,
recapture the
because it would've been
Magister
there's many failures on that day, but it would have been a critical failure if a gunman had turned his rifle on law enforcement and no one had pulled the president off the stage if it was a matter of seconds.
Thank you for allowing me to clarify.
No, of course, and thank you for answering the question. Just going back to the general process that you've seen over your distinguished career, were there any specific challenges that you and your team faced during this event?
None of which I'm aware of, to my knowledge. The planning on the PSP side, as per our interface with the Secret Service, was routine.
And you mentioned earlier that that in your experience and the standard protocol of Secret Service comes engages with its state, county, and local partners. They have a plan. They work with their partners to implement the plan in the lead up to the event and the day of the event. Is there an opportunity for the state, county, and local partners to provide input, given that they have more familiarity with the area, Butler Police, you yourself have more familiarity with the area? Is there an opportunity for you to provide any feedback to the plan that the Secret Service comes to you with?
In my past experience, yes. And in my past experience, I found that open and collaborative. We have very strong relationship. And again, there's that fine line where the deference is that they're the top com under a unified command. It's their incident. But certainly we would endeavor to give them any local nuance that would make the planning more successful.
I appreciate that. One of the things we touched on multiple times today is the multiple lines of communication, 3 different signals that were being used, command center. In your experience working with the Secret Service, have you seen a better implementation of a more streamlined communication setup that allows the different actors, the local PD, the county PD, the state police, to directly communicate to the command center, and then once there's a clear chain of command?
I have not. The Secret Service comms is a very complex operation because it's a worldwide environment in which they work. I'm in no way an expert in it. I think from the state and local perspective, our job is to try and integrate communications, and it doesn't have to be a super high-tech solution. We have people who can get a message, turn over their shoulder, and report verbally. We have radios that we can exchange, or we have a trooper with a radio assigned to another partner, be that a federal partner or a municipal partner, and those two radio communication systems can interface because of the human interaction.
And I'll wrap up real quickly, Mr. Chair. And it sort of makes sense in a way because you're going to have people doing traffic. They're going to, folks who you mentioned, a child went missing. You could have a firecracker. You could have a multiple number of things that don't need to rise up, which is why some level of siloing makes sense. But we need to look at how we make it a clearer chain of communication to ensure that really important pieces of information, like identifying a shooter on the roof, doesn't get delayed and moving through those channels. So thank you both for appearing today. Thank you both for your service. Thank you, Chairman.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Congressman Ezell for his 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, we also want to thank all of you for being here today and for Speaker Johnson for putting together a bipartisan task force to try to get as much information to find out what happened here. Today's conversation regarding the attempted assassination of former President Trump is critical, one that I pray never happens again. Throughout my law enforcement career, I held many leadership positions, and through those roles, I've coordinated with the White House, advanced teams, state and local law enforcement, doing some of these very same similar type of things. And we had one goal in mind, and that's to keep people safe. Because of a massive failure in communication, President Trump was shot from a little more than a football field away. Because of the failure of former Secret Service leadership, especially former directors, spectators forced to do what the Secret Service failed to do, and that was protect themselves. Ultimately, this led to the death of Corey Comprador, who gave his life while bravely shielding his wife and children during this terrible thing. Colonel, thank you for being here today. And I've said from the beginning, if you want answers, you got to talk to the men and women who were on the ground, the law enforcement officers who were out there, and who were taking directions and commands from the leadership of the Secret Service and various other leaders. You testified that 32 members of PSP were assigned to various roles to assist the Secret Service. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
Your officers were assigned to various roles, but they were not responsible for securing the building property at AGR. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Former director testified yesterday that the building was outside the Secret Service secured perimeter. Did the U.S. Secret Service leadership direct local or state police that was their job to secure the building? And if so, did they provide any guidance in this?
So as I stated earlier, aside from the briefing that I received about the walkthrough, when the question was raised and the response from the advance team of the Secret Service, the agents on the pre-plan, that was going to be the responsibility of Butler ECU. I have no first-hand knowledge about any interaction between the Secret Service and any other.
Secret Service established and managed the primary command post for communications in the office of the Butler Farm Show. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, sir.
Preliminary findings have concluded that communications were siloed and local law enforcement were not in frequent radio contact directly with the Secret Service. Local SWAT and sniper teams run a separate radio channels from patrol. Colonel, do your radios have the capability to be programmed to be in contact with other agencies? And do you know if the officers on the ground that day had communication capabilities with the Secret Service that's on the radio?
You're asking me a very specific question that I would defer to your communication information services. I can get you an answer.
Thank you very much. Do you know if the Secret Service provided any guidance on combined communications?
I do not. Again, referring, I have not seen their operations.
At 5:45 p.m., a local law enforcement sniper observed the suspect with a rangefinder and reported the suspect to command and the U.S. Secret Service. Colonel, how would you have responded to that information?
So again, I certainly wouldn't articulate that at that point. A rangefinder, which could have legal and legitimate use, that is a threat, but it's certainly a highly suspicious activity that should be addressed.
Mr. Woes, you testified clear and constant communication is crucial to ensure the security of the protectee, and that local law enforcement should be part of the command post to facilitate real-time information sharing and rapid response to emerging situations. As we all know, separate communications are necessary and effective during a large-scale event like this. There's no way everybody can be on the same channel. You talk over each other, you won't ever get anything done. But there must be some clear understandings through communications at the beginning so that split-second decisions can be made, so there won't be a lapse in time and these terrible things happen. Would you like to just say a few words about that?
Sorry, there's no doubt when you look at how many people are involved in an operation like this, having everyone on one channel is difficult. But there are people within contained areas, and their ability to be able to communicate as things change across platforms is crucial. In this case, we know that in seconds things unfolded. In seconds, getting meaningful communication out to people who might be able to act on that communication is vital. So I think there's avenues here. I agree that not everyone should be on the same channel, but there are certain people within certain areas and perimeters that should be having communication or the ability to communicate a little more freer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. D'Esposito, representing the New York law enforcement community as well, for 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. Thank you both for your service. On July 13th, we witnessed the Secret Service fail to secure the Pennsylvania field and keep the former president of the United States of America and the Americans that were gathered there safe. While President Trump thankfully survived this horrific attack, Corey Compatore, a volunteer fire chief, a father, and a husband died while shielding his family from the assassin's bullets. Two others, David Dutch and James Copenhaver, were both struck by bullets and are still recovering. The Secret Service failed. Quite frankly, they failed miserably. And Colonel Paris, Mr. Yoes, Mr. Ezell, myself, we could probably combine our law enforcement experience and have no question that there was failures that day. We could probably ask someone who just graduated from a police academy or a veteran with 40 years on the job, and they would agree. So my first question is to Colonel Paris. I know that you mentioned over the last year you've had close to 20 interactions with the Secret Service and visits. During his presidency, Pennsylvania has been the second most visited state by President Biden. If you could go over again, what is your coordination with the Secret Service? What does it normally look like ahead of a visit from the President of the United States?
So I would say the basic timeline is the same. We are notified at some point that there's going to be a visit of a protectee or the president and everybody in between. The venue is ultimately secured, the logistics, and then there's planning at the request of the Secret Service, and our default position is to attempt to partner and give them all the support that we can.
Okay. Now, I know that Mr. Menendez had similar questions, but I just want to reiterate because I think it's critically important. Of the dozens of times that you've dealt with visits from the President of the United States, and I'm sure you've thought about this dozens and dozens of times at this point, and read through emails and thought about different incidents, compared to the incident on July 13th, was there anything different from the way that this was handled?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay. So at approximately 5:51 p.m., Pennsylvania State Police notified the Secret Service of a subject with a rangefinder. That was 20 minutes before the gunman shot President Trump and two others. This is for either one of you. What should have happened next?
So ideally, I would say that Mr. Crooks could have been encountered and intercepted. That would have been the ideal.
Mr. Yos?
Well, again, I have no direct knowledge. I want to make that clear, but I think also we need to assess the threat and determine whether there's a need to withhold the asset from the stage.
So I think we all know what should have happened, right? 20 minutes passed. There was someone who eventually took a shot at a former president of the United States and killed 2 innocent Americans. So we know what did happen. We know what should have happened. What do you say to those that are saying that local law enforcement failed to provide adequate security at this rally?
As I stated earlier, based on everything I know up until day 10, I only am going to comment on the Pennsylvania State Police. And it's my belief as I sit here, based on all the information that I have, that we met or exceeded our expectations for that event. Am I saying that the event was a success? Obviously, it was not. And our hearts go out to those affected.
I will echo the fact that that local law enforcement plays a huge role and must. I don't think the federal agencies have the ability to with bandwidth to be able to have this event without coordinated effort with local law enforcement. To my knowledge, local law enforcement did what their responsibilities and directions were.
And Mr. Yos, we've corresponded about this prior, but I just want to, in the last 20 seconds I have, the United States Secret Service established and managed the primary command post. Would you agree, Colonel, that in the United States of America, we have a serious issue when it comes to law enforcement and communicating through multiple jurisdictions and agencies at a singular event?
I would say the short answer is it depends, but communications are always a critical piece to any successful operation.
So I agree it does depend, but I do have a concern when some people's lives are on the lines, when we are supposed to be protecting an asset regardless of who it is, but especially someone who was it was the president of the United States. The fact that law enforcement agencies are communicating at such a critical time via text message is a problem. And it's one that I think this committee and other committees need to take a real hard look at. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Strong for 5 minutes question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I think we all agree that none of us ever wanted to be holding a hearing like this. As we have covered, the Secret Service relies on federal, state, and local partners to coordinate and secure events to ensure the safety of its protectee. As both of you rightly emphasized in your testimony, Secret Service is the ultimate responsible and the final arbiter of any and all security matters affecting their protectee. Full stop. Mr. Yos, you also went on to highlight the importance of mutual respect, trust, and shared commitment in the relationship between Secret Service, the state, and locals. I was pleased to learn that Director Cheadle has tendered her resignation. This is the first time we have seen real accountability from the director following July the 13th. It is my hope the truth will now come. Her lack of leadership following the assassination attempt has not only impeded the ongoing investigation and eroded the public's trust, but it is also the potential to erode the mutual respect and trust that are fundamental to this relationship between the Secret Service and partners they rely on. Colonel Paris, I understand that state and locals were the ones that first alerted the command center of a suspicious individual some 20 minutes before he started shooting. Is that correct?
As I said before, I would agree with the sequence of events, but I don't want to go on the record with the exact time. So that's my understanding of the sequence of events. Yes.
Does the Pennsylvania State Police use a digital radio system, whether it be the P25 or something of that nature?
Yes, we do.
And it has unbelievable technology. I know we've utilized it throughout the state of Alabama, 40 years and as a first responder, to go from UHF, VHF to a digital system changes the ball game. Does the Secret Service also use a digital radio system?
I would have to get you information on that. I don't know, sir.
Okay, so the communication between the agencies, you start looking at it, the communication with a digital radio system, you can change frequencies, you can make a mutual frequency. Every radio you can have hundreds of different frequencies. But as far as you're not sure if they have a digital radio system or if they're using another conventional UHF or VHF frequency or something of that nature.
In answer to the first part, I'm not an expert on radios. I can't render an opinion on what their system is, but the only answer I would provide is my understanding is there are certain encrypted capabilities that the Secret Service has to maintain that may incident, and we were able to set up a patch to communicate across agencies.
Thank you. Colonel Paris, as you just shared, after state and locals identified the shooter as suspicious, they relayed that information to Secret Service and were given a number to send their concerns to. Is this standard operating procedures to be left a phone number to give your information to rather than direct communications through radio?
I don't want to say that it's standard operating procedure, but if it was a system that or a measure that worked to push that information to the people who needed it in the most expeditious means, I wouldn't be averse to going away from standard protocols.
You said that you had done this type of event with other presidents or in your state. In past history, is this how it usually was done?
I can't say that I have had a personal experience about. I've obviously been present when there were suspicious people that came out over the radio and law enforcement was seeking them, but I can't say that I have a frame of reference exactly on point here, sir.
Did the Secret Service provide rules of engagement for state and locals? Did y'all have to authorize a green light for fire, or do you go by your day-to-day activity where
we would go by the policy and regulations and state law that cover the Pennsylvania State Police.
Another thing that stood out to me with a background in emergency medical services is when the president was brought off, you saw his SUV move about 20 feet, and then it sat there. We watched as a lady in a skirt walked in front of the SUV. We watched as other law enforcement, people, spectators, whatever. Did you notice that seemed to be a long time for the president to be sitting for someone that had taken a bullet? Did you think that was a long time?
I would completely defer to the Secret Service.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Crane for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like the staff to go ahead and play the video that I took at the site yesterday.
All right, guys, I'm up here on the building where the supposed sniper took his shot. It's not that steep at all. We just had a 70-year-old man back here climb up on the roof easily. See that water tower behind me? Had Secret Service or anybody had sniper teams up there, this guy wouldn't have made it 5 feet up this roof. He would have been taken out. Behind me, you see the windows that Secret Service was supposedly in the second floor of this building behind. Makes you wonder why they weren't able to quickly dispatch the individual. And then behind me, back over here where those red roofs are, that's where
Can you guys cut it right there,
the
please?
president was giving his speech from. A lot of questions here in Butler.
Got it. Thank you. All right, Colonel Paris, did you notice when you showed up on site what the tallest structure on the site was?
I can't say at the moment that I arrived that I did, no, sir.
Okay. Now that you've had a chance to go back and look over it, what is the tallest structure on that site?
The water towers.
Absolutely. Colonel, do you know how far the water tower was from the roof where the shooter took his shots?
I do not.
160 yards, sir. Who made the decision, Colonel, not to put a counter sniper team on the tallest structure by far on the site with 360-degree surveillance? Do you have any idea?
I do not know, sir.
Okay, we'd like to get that answer. Did you see the video that showed me sticking my phone out the second-story window? Did you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, exposing the coverage of the window of the entire roof. Are you aware that local law enforcement and Secret Service had full access to that building in that room?
My understanding is that they did.
Yeah. Why weren't security teams, sir, on site able to spot
a 20-year-old kid with zero camouflage crawling up a white roof with an AR-15 that several rally goers were screaming and yelling and pointing out, and they noticed him, and they weren't even there to conduct security. They were there to watch the president. Do you have any idea why the security teams couldn't find that guy?
I do not, sir.
Would the gentleman yield for just a
Yes,
second
yes,
on
sir.
that? So just for clarification, it was the ESU guys that were manning those buildings?
Yep.
And they left because of the call of the suspicious person. So they left their post there to go look for him. They're the same individuals who attempted to climb up the building and were scared away by the shooter pointing the gun, right?
I reclaim my time. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
that's
just
fine.
wondering why they weren't able to find him, because even while they were looking, they could have still looked out that window that they had access to. All right. Colonel Paris, I'm just going to say it. Are you aware, sir, that many Americans believe this was very likely not a lone shooter, but a coordinated assassination attempt? Have you been getting those messages from people like I have?
I have not, sir.
You haven't? Well, there's a lot of people in this room that have been getting the same messages. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that a lot of Americans are like, this doesn't add up, this doesn't make sense, guys? How could this many things have gone wrong? Right? Like the things I pointed out, a 20-year-old kid, got 150 yards of the president of the United States with an AR-15, flew a drone to conduct site surveillance, was spotted with a rangefinder ranging targets, then lost, had advanced explosive devices on him with no military training. Nobody was placed in the most obvious spot to conduct counter sniper operations. I was a sniper in the SEAL teams, Colonel. As soon as I got out of the SUV and I saw that that water tower, I was like, that's exactly where I'd be. Put me right there. So obvious. After partisan attempts to bankrupt him, imprison him for 750 years, and countless depictions as a modern day Hitler, are you surprised, sir, that a lot of Americans are like, maybe there's more to this story?
I wouldn't begin to speculate about what the American people think, sir.
Colonel, did your team make entry and conduct investigation at the suspect's home?
People that participated in that securing of it, there were bomb assets that we provided.
Mr. Chairman, can I have 30 more seconds?
Yeah, I'm letting everybody comment.
Okay.
On the night of. Since then, none.
Did you get any reports from any of your agents of anything fishy at the home?
I was briefed on.
Was there any silverware found in the home or trash?
I have nothing in the briefing that I was given, sir.
Was it extremely clean, almost like a medical lab? Were you given any of those reports?
I was not given any of those details, sir.
Okay, that's what I'm hearing. Interesting. The last thing I want to enter into the record, Mr. Chairman, this is article opinion from, I believe, the Washington Post by Robert Kagan. A Trump dictatorship is increasingly inevitable. We should stop pretending. This article compares Trump to Caesar and attempts to justify the assassination of President Trump. And I think even though we want to dodge around it and not make this partisan, I think we all know that a lot of this has to do with the rhetoric, the very violent rhetoric that has led up to this. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields, and so ordered on the entry of that into the record. I now recognize Mr. Burkeen for 5 minutes of testimony or witness questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alexander, would you mind moving that just a little bit forward here so I can, Colonel Paris, can you see that, or am I obstructing your view?
I believe I can see it, sir.
Alexander, would you mind? I'm sorry. Can we shift it just a little bit to your left, Alexander? There we go. Okay. Better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a picture I took yesterday on the grounds, looking out of that second-story window that has the corridor that connects the AGR building, the American Glass Research Building, with where the shooter's location. And I'm going to stand up and I'm going to point to the shooter's location as we were made aware. From that X is where the shooter was shared with us. His body was found. From this viewpoint, there's some videos that make it look like he's more this direction, but from the perception, it kind of is confusing. But he was more towards that opposite side. This window, second story, it's the second window from the right side. That window has this view where they could clearly, those ESU officers that were stationed, given access by the property owner to that window, could see the shooter had they stayed in that man position. This is their moving towards the location of President Trump with the red barns back here. His stage was right in front of that. And you can see a window here that is absolutely going to obstruct the view to be able to look to the 20 or 30 different barn structures, the cattle building, the sheep building, the hog building, the rodeo arena by the pond, the many structures. There's 50 buildings within a 500-yard radius of where President Trump was at. So many vulnerabilities. Do you see a problem with that window being in the way of someone being able from this position to be able to take care of the asset?
A casement window would present a tactical concern for full field.
And I understand potentially, this was air conditioning on top of this second story building wasn't, and so maybe that was a consideration. But ultimately, Secret Service is the one who made the determination of placement or contacting or making sure the plan was in coordination with the property owner for gaining admittance from the property owner for the second story window. Is that correct? That was Secret Service's plan.
Correct. Ultimately, it's on this.
It's on Secret Service for that plan. All right. My question is, if it's their plan, did they not indicate that someone had to stay manned in that location? Because we're being told that when the two officers, local PD, were trying to lift themselves on the opposite side to get a look at the gentleman, and he turns his gun and they dropped off the building. This would have been a perfect opportunity. Someone would be on the radio. They could have taken him out from this location. Did the Secret Service plan not include directives from staying in those positions?
Don't know.
All right, here's another question. With the 2 minutes that you said that there was an opportunity from the time that they were hoisted up, looked at the shooter, you're given the responsibility, as this is delegated in the outer perimeter, to secure the area. Why weren't they able to immediately call their supervisor, who would then be authorized to issue a hold on the asset or a get him off the stage call? Why does it have to be, as your testimony says, they took a picture, sent it to Secret Service 20 minutes before the incident, the shooting, and they have to wait for a response? Why is not the line of communication? I understand they're on different radio frequencies. Why were they not empowered to say, if we send something suspicious, then state police, local law enforcement, sheriff's department, each one, the head official of each one of those departments, if we entrusted them with enough responsibility to secure that environment, then we ought to give them the responsibility to issue a hold call because of something that they see as a threat. Are they empowered to do that, or does it have to all go through Secret Service to issue a hold?
I can only say what I know about the state police operations plan, and I do not know the answer to the questions.
So
I do not know the answer. I don't know what the protocol would be to issue the hold order. And just as a point of clarification that I tried to meet up with Congressman from New Jersey before, when the two municipal officers were, one was hoisted.
Can I jump on that 2 to 3 minutes, because I got limited time here?
Just to make sure that was seconds before. That was seconds before folks started firing.
Okay, you had said earlier today it was 2 to 3 minutes, but you're saying seconds before.
Second time, yes, sir.
Okay, but even if they're hoisting, your testimony today, if I understood you correctly, it was two different officers that were hoisting to get a look at him, not the ones who were manned in this view.
That is my understanding.
Okay, so had they remained in there, they immediately would have seen the incident taking place. If they were on the same line of communication, and they could have taken the asset out.
I'm remiss to say that because I don't know what their general rules of engagement and assignment were in the Secret Service.
Just looks to me like a major breakdown of communication. This procedure looks to me like it is lapsed with the ability of someone who, if they entrust them with the ability to secure these perimeter, they ought to be empowered enough to be able to give the authority on their comms to issue a hold. I don't understand that. That I yield.
Gentleman yields. And I'm going to say this because I have thoroughly enjoyed both of your testimony today. And there are a lot of guys up here on both sides of the aisle charged about this. That their emotion is not intended to communicate a lack of trust in the Pennsylvania State Police, or you're being incredibly helpful today. Some of the things that we've discovered from your testimony have brought some frustration to our folks, and I hope you'll understand it in that context, that it's, the energy is not directed at you. The failure to set up appropriate communication systems and to make decisions when they become aware of someone pointing a rangefinder is what's got people upset. And that's on Secret Service. So I just wanted to make sure y'all heard that from me.
Yeah,
And
Mr. Chairman, if I was amped up a little bit, I concur. So greatly respect what you're doing.
I now recognize Ms. Lee for 5 minutes of testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having this hearing and for organizing this committee's trip to Butler, Pennsylvania. For us, being on the ground in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday made clear the severity of the security failures on Saturday, July 13th. Those failures that almost allowed former President Donald Trump to be assassinated. Unfortunately, what has followed that failed assassination attempt is an erosion of public trust related to those responsible for keeping the president and the attendees of the rally safe. We've heard that because of a sloped roof, law enforcement was not able to safely secure the area that day. We've heard reports that certain officers abandoned their posts due to weather conditions. We've heard the Secret Service attempt to shift blame to state and local law enforcement, asserting that they failed to secure certain areas in the perimeter. Secret Service Chief Cheadle's resignation this morning is the first of many steps that need to be taken, and today's hearing is just the beginning of our process to get clear, accurate information about this issue, about the failures associated with that day, and ensure that not only Congress but that the American public get the answers that they deserve about these events. Mr. Yost, I'd like to start with you. The Secret Service is always the lead in providing security for these types of events that involve one of their protectees, but they clearly rely on their partnerships with state and local law enforcement as they move to different locations around the country. Are you concerned that former Director Cheadle's comments to ABC News, which many people heard as blame shifting to local law enforcement, could undermine the level of trust between state and local authorities and Secret Service when they come to communities around America?
Yes, I absolutely do, and our organization actually issued a press release stating just that. Our relationship, it's impossible for a federal agency to do their function without including local law enforcement. That's a given. And that relationship is built on trust, and when comments were made, like what made on ABC, and we felt the need to call it out.
And do you believe that the federal government's statements to the public, to the American people after this attempted assassination have helped or harmed public trust in law enforcement overall?
You know, I'll say this. The very powers that we have are the ability to do our job as law enforcement officers, which is directly related to trust.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. I appreciate Chairman Green's allowing me to be here and then also to be in Butler yesterday, where it's my hometown. I'm 4 miles from this location. My concern actually started on July the 5th when I was told that former President Trump was coming to Butler, and I said, that's great. And they said, yeah, and he's going to be at the Butler Farm Show. I said, you must mean the big Butler Fair. They said, no, the Butler Farm Show. I said, who did a site visit? The answer is, we've already made our determination. My question was, so then what you just told me is nobody's been to that site. I will just tell you right now that what you are planning there is not proper for the crowd that's going to show up. At that point, the person on the phone said, Mr. Kelly, there'll be 6,000 or 7,000 people there. I said, well, that tells me even more about the fact that you have no idea where you're going. And historically, what has happened whenever the President Trump had come to Butler, we got 55,000 people at that rally. He said that was before, when he was president. He's no longer president. So being there, not only just myself, but also my wife, 3 of my grandchildren, and 1 of my sons, and so many friends that were there that day, I think it all comes down to the same question that we always ask when we get to these situations. What did we know and when did we know it? Going to look at what happened and say, we knew there was something wrong. We could see it. I would just put to you that had we acted quicker, Mr. Comparatori would still be alive today. President Trump would not have been wounded, and 2 other people who were that day would not have been wounded. And in a greater sense, the American people have been wounded in a way that they have lost faith, trust, and confidence in how we protect certain people. This goes far beyond that, and I appreciate you both being here, and I'll tell you what, you really have given us testimony based on what your whole careers have been about, and that is protecting people. For some reason, on July 13th, we knew something was wrong. Every person I've talked to that was there that day or responsible for protection says, we did our job. I said, so then you're saying that somebody else didn't do their job? And the answer is, well, that's to be decided later on. So I would just say, first of all, I meant what I said. I think the American people now are deeply wounded, and the faith, trust, and confidence we need to have in our government has been fading for too long. I was there with the Pennsylvania State. For Corey Comparatori to be dead today, there is no reason for President Trump to have been wounded or 2 other members in the audience that day to have been wounded had we done what we knew before we let it go any further than that. That could have been stopped early on. Nobody can convince me that when people see somebody on the roof of a house, of a building, and pointing to him and yelling, there's somebody up there, it needs to be taken care of. And other people who were there, that eyewitnesses said they watched him go onto those grounds. And every time they said, there's something wrong, somebody is going in the wrong direction and shouldn't be there. And the answer comes down, you don't know what you're talking about. There's nobody there. So as we continue looking at this, and I think that we have a lot of testimony today, and again, I thank you for being there, but I just submit to you that the victims of that day, innocent people, none of it had to happen. We knew beforehand, and we could have prevented it, but we failed to act when we should have acted. So I appreciate your careers and everything you've done. And Chairman, I appreciate the fact that I've been able to be here today and that you came to our town yesterday, in a town that I have lived. This spot is a place I've been at many, many, many times. I just cannot understand why we didn't act when we knew there was something wrong. At the very least, they could have taken President Trump off the podium, and some of the other activity after that never would have taken place. So thank you for having me here, and thank you both. Colonel, Mr. Yost, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it, but there is far, far more we have to learn. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We're going to do another round of questioning, and I don't know, Mr. Gray, if you are going to want to ask any other questions. Okay, sounds good. So you'll follow me, and then we'll go around. I just want to get back to this text message that was sent at about 20 to 25 minutes prior. That text message was a picture of Crooks. Was it a picture of him pointing the rangefinder or of him just looking suspicious?
High-level Volga is closing in. We confirm it's a new Kuiper-enhanced variant.
It's built from the same material as the one we're after. Make a note in the operations log, number 17.
At about 20 to 25 minutes prior.
Did you let it happen?
That text message was a picture of Crooks. Was it a picture of him pointing the rangefinder or of him just looking suspicious?
You may suddenly Chairman, encounter I powerful have not seen the units that picture that aren't was in our sent, so database. Oh,
I don't know.
We're
But
down. understanding is, Volga's to the occupied best of my territory. briefings, it was the pictures that were initially taken by Butler ESU.
Okay, so that was the 62 minutes
High-level
prior.
Volga is closing in.
Okay.
We confirm it's a new
At 20,
Kuiper-enhanced
25 minutes prior, though, someone saw him pointing a rangefinder and taking range estimation or range readings, right?
The enemy's being drawn your way. I think I don't want to speculate as to what he actually was doing with the rangefinder, but the rangefinder, my
Was
understanding is
out.
was the heightened suspicion. Yes, sir.
And he was pointing it. I mean, because a rangefinder, I guess you can have it digital and do it like this, but there are also rangefinders you look through and you have a reading. You know
I
description
do
of the
not
rangefinder?
it was not briefed to me.
Okay. But there was concern, and that was relayed to the command post. And that was a PSP guy in the Secret Service command post via a text message 20-something minutes before, and you'd think it included the fact that the guy had a rangefinder.
My understanding is
Okay. Okay. Then you mentioned that the two ESU guys that were in the second story, it's honestly, in truth, to me, it appears to be a second building behind it that got joined by all these different, the breakup of that whole complex and the intricacies of, places to hide and move around, all the little alleyways, is because they built tunnelways, or not tunnels, but hallways that were covered between each of these different buildings. So it's actually a separate building with a amended. Yep. So there are two guys in that building. They leave to go look for the guy, the suspicious person.
My understanding is yes. According to the interview.
So they were not manning. They did not have oversight on that rooftop because they were out looking for the guy.
Correct. My understanding is it was the grounds around there. To see it photographed now or on your tour yesterday, without scores of people traversing from different parking areas to make ingress into the secure perimeter, that there was a concerted effort to try and identify and make contact with, in conjunction with other. I was briefed that there were two other suspicious individuals simultaneous to this, not terribly too far away distance-wise. I don't have the specifics,
But those
all occurring contemporaneous.
But one of them, Crooks, had a rangefinder, and so they leave and they go look. He's suspicious. That leaves that building with two sets of eyes that could have observed it, granted by exposing themselves. And by the way, I think they could stay in the building as opposed to being on top of it for their own sort of defilade position. I get that as a sniper works, but you got to be able to see it. So anyway, they leave. Did they note? Was Secret Service notified that they were leaving to go look for this guy, and thus those eyes on top of the building know?
I do not know, and the other thing that I do not know is where else Butler ESU sent that not been redone.
Who told them? Who told them to go look? Do you know if they were told to go look?
I do not know.
We just know that they did go look.
Yes, sir. And I said a very concerted effort with all of those alcoves and all of those buildings was made. There were two additional officers who, again, I don't know the specifics of the timeline. I don't know the specifics of the logistics of how that information was
it seems to me that that was leaving that extra set of eyes on top of the building. You know, it would be something if I were the site commander at that point, I'd want to know 2 guys are leaving a post where they have observation on a building, and that somebody relayed that to me so that I would know, oh, wait a minute, now 2 sets of eyes that were on the building. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you pull security, if you pull your lateral security in an ambush or something, I'm talking like an Army guy now. And the commander's going to know that guy's moved away from there and now he's got a blind spot, right? So I just want to make sure, I want to dig into that a little more. Obviously, you don't have the answer, so we'll dig elsewhere. But I find it interesting that they leave, this guy is so suspicious, has a rangefinder, they leave their post that they are manning to go look for him. Yet Secret Service, and they get told about it 20 to 25 minutes beforehand, but the Secret Service still lets the president go on the stage. I'm just totally blown away by that. But again, there's more details to be had. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over now to the ranking member for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Commissioner Paris, Mr. Yost, we're looking at a rearview mirror of what happened. A lot of good questions from both sides of the aisle. Commissioner Paris, you don't have the luxury of time. You're protecting governor, and you'll be protecting high-profile candidates in your battleground state, like right about now. I'm trying to figure out how we help you do your job a whole lot better. Mr. Kelly, his line of questioning was interesting. And I considered it important because that's his background, that's his backyard. And he asked, who decided the site of the event? It's a good question. Bigger question is, who approves the site of an event? And I come back to what I said earlier, which is one of those officers on the ground said, Lou, he said, who's in charge? The Secret Service says good or bad. Does the campaign then say good or bad, or does the campaign have the ability to override the Secret Service at an event? And I ask this question from you, Commissioner Ferris, you're gonna have to make these decisions here real soon. Because if I'm here where you're at today you've learned some lessons. 13th to today, we've all learned some lessons, and you have to execute, sir. And it's not your responsibility, it's not our responsibility, it's all of us our responsibility. And I want to know how we can help you clarify these lines of command, so to speak, to make sure that we minimize the possibilities of this happening again. Who makes the decisions? Who's in charge? What are the lessons we've learned today, gentlemen? Sir, what is it that we can do to make sure that it's not going to be on your shoulders? You're not going to be able to resign. You have to execute. Please.
I appreciate your comments very much. I can say that through the governor and the legislature and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we are very supportive, and we have the resources, I believe, moving forward to rise to the occasion. The Secret Service remains the agency with the most experience, traditionally, when you talk about organizational knowledge, to carry this forward. Responsible for the Pennsylvania State Police, I pledge that any and all support that we can give to keep all Pennsylvanians safe, which is what 6,400 civilian and enlisted Pennsylvania State Police show up every day to do, we will do. We want a robust republic, and we want to secure people's ability to express their views, and we have worked diligently and will continue to work diligently to make sure that that happens.
Commissioner Paris, you are the thin blue line. Keeps us safe. Secret Service is an even thinner line. It keeps, in many ways, our democracy functioning, protecting us. They have to score 100%. they cannot let one bad thing happen as they did on the 13th. I want to make sure that we know that we give the Secret Service the ability to make those decisions when it comes to the safety of our candidates and elected officials. And for the third time, I'm going to repeat those words that were told to me by an individual, law enforcement individual on the ground, and he said, Lou, who's in charge? Is it the campaign or is it the Secret Service? And I'd like to get to the bottom of that and make sure it's the Secret Service that's in charge. I don't know who is in charge, and I hope to God that we do find out. And I hope it's the Secret Service, and if it is the Secret Service, that reaffirm that they are in charge. As the buck stops somewhere, it's got to be here. This committee, the government, with us in Congress. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Colonel Paris and Mr. Yoes, I appreciate your patience in being and continuing through this questioning. And I would submit that I think your candor, Colonel Paris, has been very refreshing, and it paints a clear contrast from what was the testimony of the director of the Secret Service yesterday, who's now resigned. But her resignation doesn't resolve a thing. And in fact, the criminal investigation that your department is undertaking, that presumably Butler authorities may be involved in, the FBI is undertaking, those don't really resolve anything. They fix criminal liability of someone who's presumably, if they acted alone, is dead. What is the most important issue is we have a national security crisis. We have right now, the only person who's been inactivated, as I understand it, is the sharpshooter who took the perp out. The people who made what appear to be unbelievably horrendous decisions. You can't even imagine. It boggles the mind, the decisions that were made. They're still in place. And we have multiple protectees moving around the country every day. And the same people, I don't even know if they've changed anything about what they're doing. Presumably you would think so, but we don't know that. I think we need to learn as much as possible from you. I will say as a note of departure, I don't think, from what I've heard, you've made pretty clear the Pennsylvania State Police didn't do anything wrong. I don't know whether Butler County ESU might have done something wrong, so let me bear into that. Okay, all right. But it's clear to me as a bell that Secret Service, and that everyone characterizes as colossal failure, because it's obvious to everyone concerned that that's the case. The two who were, I'm going to get one thing I understand transpired while I was absent from the hearing for a bit. Do I understand that the two Butler ESU officers who one hoisted the other to the roof line where the crooks turned and leveled the rifle at him, those were two different ESU officers than the ones that originally spotted crooks from the second floor. Is that correct?
So just to be clear, my understanding is the two officers that responded and one hoisted up the second one were not part of Butler ESU. They were two separate municipal officers who were tasked with different responsibility. I would speculate as an example to say a traffic post or a
understood.
And they responded. I don't know again the specifics as to how they were alerted, but just to be clear, they were two separate. Yes, sir.
Okay. The ESU, the Butler ESU officers who spotted crooks. Do I understand correctly? They spotted him from the second floor of the AGR building.
That is my understanding. Yes, sir.
Were they posted there in order to maintain overwatch on the roof? Or were they generally assigned roving responsibility to be in the vicinity of that building?
I can't answer that, and I would defer to the Secret Service as to what the communication was in the assignment given.
Yeah, put that picture of the building up. I see that because I asked for it. I don't even know if I'll fit it in at this point. So that's, yeah, you see, so the Crooks was on the building directly facing the camera here. And you see the window open to the left. That's the second story of the AGR building where those ESU officers spotted crooks, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Did they advise their senior, their command that they were departing that location to look for crooks? You know that?
I do not know.
Why did they stay away from that position for so long? If I understand correctly, the picture of Crooks was texted about 20, 25 minutes ahead of the shooting. Is that correct, first of all?
You asked me that one more time, sir. I just want to make sure.
Was the picture of Crooks that they took, did they take that picture about and send it to up into to their command about 20, 25 minutes before the shooting?
What I want to be specific about is when the PSP member in the command post received it. And I believe that's in the vicinity of 20 to 25 minutes, with the caveat prior put on the record about a series of events, not a timeline.
You don't know whether they...
I don't specifically know. I believe the pictures of Crooks were taken at some point before that, when he was identified as being suspicious based on my prior testimony and the statements that I had, because he was...
Okay, I get it. At least we've got a fairly long numbers of minutes, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. Why did they not return to that post? Do you know that?
I do not know, sir. My understanding is that there was a very concerted effort at that point to actively search and locate him and dispel that suspicion.
You mentioned that you have asked for, not received, I don't know what you call it, the site plan, but from the Secret Service has not been given to you. Has there been anything else that you've asked for in the course of your investigation that's been denied or made inaccessible to you other than the site?
Again, I want to be clear. No, I'm not aware of anything else that we've asked for, and we have not been denied. I just believe we haven't received it yet, so I want to make sure I'm not mischaracterizing that we asked for it and we have yet to receive it.
Yeah, we never get denied stuff. We just never get it. My time having expired, I recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Ludlow.
Thank you, Chairman. Colonel, I want to reiterate the appreciation the committee has for your energy, your stamina, your focus, your candor. It's regrettable that some of our federal colleagues are not at the table with me today. We would have liked to extract from them some of the facts from 10 days ago. My colleagues from both sides of the aisle, I think, asked good, fair questions of you, and you gave good, fair, accurate responses to them. Helps us understand July 13th a little more. It was only 10 days ago. We're probably only in the infancy of that investigation of our oversight responsibilities, but you've provided us a lot. I want to use the remainder of my time to look forward. There's going to be a lot of conjecture about what happened, who's at fault. But putting that aside, we've talked about flaws that happened on July 13th, the tactical flaws about communication, strategic ones like lack of administrative ones like command and control and who has what authority, what are the rules of engagement. So I wanted to ask you, Colonel, and it's been said, Pennsylvania is going to have a number of more rallies, appearances, where the public is going to interact with presidential candidates from both sides of the aisle. What are you going to do? How are you going to assert yourself in your leadership role to reduce the likelihood of an incident like this, specifically with respect to tactics? We understand that radio communications were a weakness. Do you have a perspective on looking forward, how you might command your officers in a different manner to ensure that from a tactical perspective, specifically with communications, these events are held differently?
So yes, I will start with referring to the testimony of Congressman Luttrell about reinforcing and reiterating to try and mitigate any potential complacency. Pennsylvania State Police maintains the Pennsylvania Criminal Intelligence Center. We're always trying to lean forward and glean as much criminal intelligence as we can, not only generated within the ranks of the Pennsylvania State Police, but our local partners, our county partners, and through task force collaborations that we have with multiple federal agencies. I can tell you that we will not back away from the Secret Service. We will lean forward to support them, and all of the resources of the Pennsylvania State Police will be brought to bear to keep Pennsylvanians and those visiting the Commonwealth safe.
Have you considered communications specifically? Different radios, training on those radios, other communications devices, be it digital or voice or whatever. Have you considered prospectively either acquire new technology, implementing new training, or otherwise developing tactics that allow not only state and local to communicate better with each other, but also that communication to be shared more effectively with federal partners?
I would say in the short term, coming up to the election, there's extreme technical component there that would make it difficult. Maintaining critical communications in any operation, investigation of a traffic crash, or a major investigation, a Castle Conte manhunt, an Eric Flynn manhunt, a 95 bridge disaster, a derailment of a train on the border with Pennsylvania, a 6-hour running gun battle in Uniata County. We're always looking to get better, and communications that we maintain are a critical part of that. So I can commit that we will try to get that. There is something that these future endeavors, which we've committed at the top of the testimony to be part of, proves that we can do better. We're always looking every day to get better.
I know that members are allowed to, through the appropriations process, advocate for more resources to come to their state and local law enforcement partners for things like communication devices. I know that I've been able to lean into that process here, and I'm sure that Mr. Kelly and others from the Pennsylvania delegation will endeavor to use federal funds to help augment your ability to increase your ability to communicate among each other and also with federal partners. I want to move to strategy, thinking a little more outside the bubble in the days and weeks leading up to an event. Colonel, do you have a sense on prospectively technology that you use, like drones, other decisions you might make, like stationing somebody on a nearby high vantage point like a water tower? You've heard some feedback from some informed members here today. Are those things helpful for you to plan moving forward to seize opportunities, both technological and physical, for events moving forward?
Short answer is yes. Our undercover assets and the surveillance and intelligence gathering is something we rely on heavily. We do have some drone capabilities that we're always looking to augment.
Friggin' dying. Did I get the Amorphous? No. I get nada. his ammo. I need ammo, so had to die regardless. At least once. Right? Cool. There we go.
This operator. This op. operator.
Oh, that was it? I'm already out of organic shards. Oh my god. Fuck.
Beloved daughter, the Vulgas.
Holy moly. That is wild. We've hacked like three. That's crazy. I'm already annoyed. So let's just go kill stuff. Farming. Oh god, my back. Holy moly.
I wouldn't frame it as the United States. These are talks that we hope will take place that will be co-hosted by the United States, the government of Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. And the goal of these talks is to build on the work that has already taken place in Jeddah and to try to move them to the next phase. We continue to believe there is no military solution to the conflict in Sudan, and we believe that convening these national ceasefire talks and making clear that they are backed by key international stakeholders is the only way to end the conflict in Sudan, to prevent the famine that exists there now from spreading, and to create space to restore the civilian political process. So we hope that the SAF and RSF will accept this invitation that we've extended to them. And as I said, it is not just from us, it's from the government of Switzerland, the government of Saudi Arabia, and I would note that these talks, should they go forward, will be joined by observers from the African Union, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and the United Nations.
Did you receive any response from the Sudanese
The
parties?
invitation just went today, so we have not yet, but we're certainly hopeful that they will accept. We think it's important that they use this opportunity to negotiate a ceasefire, to stop this horrific conflict and help ensure humanitarian access gets to the Sudanese people who need it.
And on Iran, the Iranian president has said today that Iran stands ready for all negotiations on nuclear program. What's your reaction?
So we have long made clear that we support diplomacy. We see that as the chief route to dealing with Iran's nuclear program. But we're a long way from that right now, especially when you see the steps that Iran has taken to flagrantly flout the requirements of the IAEA. And so we would hope that as a first step, Iran would come back in compliance with the demands of the IAEA that they have been, as I said, flouting here today.
Does it mean
that
you're not ready for talks with the new president?
So let me back up and say, while we certainly saw the comments from the new president, I do think it is important to remember that ultimately these decisions are decisions that are made by the Supreme Leader, and we have not made any assessment that Iran is yet changing its overall strategic approach to these issues.
And finally, on this, that means you're waiting to hear from Khamenei, not from the president?
I don't have anything to add beyond that.
Sorry, just to follow up on Sudan.
The Jeddah talks have been unsuccessful so far. What makes you think that this format will be more successful in reaching a deal?
So the way to answer that is, I can't give you any assessment on the likelihood of a deal, but we just want to get the parties back at the table. And what we determined is that bringing the parties, the three host nations, and the observers together is the best shot that we have right now at getting a nationwide cessation of violence and getting a ceasefire that would allow humanitarian actors to surge humanitarian assistance in, and get back to this place where we can find a mechanism to restore the democratic transition that Sudan was on. And so we are looking, this is the Secretary spoke to this on Friday. Sudan right now, unfortunately, doesn't get all the attention it should from, I believe, the world. It certainly gets attention from us here. We know it gets attention from others in the region and others in the international community. But there is a horrific human tragedy taking place there right now. These two parties that continue to fight each other and put civilians at risk and bring civilians not just through direct harm, but harm through the humanitarian crisis that's been created. So we're looking for anything we can do to get these talks restarted and try to get a ceasefire. And so if we can bring the weight of the United States to bear, and our partner nations, Switzerland and Saudi Arabia, can do so as well, we think it's important to do that.
And aside from the location, obviously, are there any changes to the format being made that you hope will help move this forward?
I don't want to talk about the details of how the talks will proceed. I think it's something that we got to hold and discuss with our partners for making those public. But ultimately, these are decisions that SAF and the RSF have to make. They're the parties to the fight. They're the parties that are putting their own countrymen in such grave danger and costing the lives of so many of their innocent countrymen. And so we're going to do all we can to get these talks restarted with our partners, and we'll hope that the SAF and the RSF will come to the table for talks. You know, they've committed to make various steps in the past and have blown through them time and time again. And so we're hopeful that this would be an opportunity to finally get our way through the ceasefire.
Donald Trump's confirmed that Netanyahu is going to go to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. Do you have any concerns that this meeting is happening ahead of his Congress address and also meeting with the president? I have one more comment.
I don't. Look, obviously we have one president at a time, and I think it's always important that everyone remember that. But at the same time, it's fairly common that heads of state, heads of government in foreign countries meet with political parties while they're here in the United States, and meet with nominees for president while they're here in the United States, and we do the same thing. The Secretary has met with opposition leaders and opposition candidates a number of times in his visits around the world, so that in itself is a fairly routine event. Both on behalf of other countries and on behalf of the United States.
And one, just to go back to the region, there's a report about this. It's described as a secret meeting with the UAE about the Gaza Day After plan, and the reporting is that State Department Counsel Tom Sullivan attended. Can you confirm whether that meeting took place? And if yes, whether you could give us any more information about it?
So that meeting did take place. Tom Sullivan was in the UAE at the end of last week to advance our plans around a ceasefire and advance our plans around the day after. But as often happens, I know people will portray these meetings as secret, but oftentimes these meetings involve pretty delicate, sensitive discussions and sensitive negotiations, and there's a reason we don't make the topics of those discussions public, and I think I will decline to do so here.
Just one more, because there's an op-ed coming from the Emiratis as well. Their special envoy wrote about this. She said that the plan involves deploying a temporary international mission to Gaza. Can you comment at all on whether that's accurate?
No, I have not read the op-ed that you're referring to. Obviously, we have been in discussions with our partners about what security inside Gaza would look like, both during the ceasefire and at the end of the conflict, but I don't want to comment on the particulars of those discussions.
Make a note in the operations log.
Yeah.
On the day after plans, can you give us an understanding as to how far along those plans actually are? If you guys have agreements in terms of the countries that would partake in this international force to stabilize Gaza?
You're stipulating something as fact that I have not said is fact. Go ahead.
Okay, well, if you would like to, describe it in your own words, have at it. But just, are these agreements still in the works? Are they almost done? Are they ready to roll out, day 2 after a ceasefire? Just give us an understanding of where that's
So it really does vary when you look at at different aspects of what's required for Gaza. We have had a number of discussions, including fairly advanced discussions with countries in the region about the security situation, how to address the security situation and ensure security in Gaza, and the same is true for governance. And there are proposals that we have put forward to our Arab partners. There are proposals that they have put forward to us, and we have been working through various differences. And when I say it's not the case that every country in the region is signed up to the same plan either, right? People have different views about what the best way would be to accomplish this, and people have different political imperatives that they need to be responsible to. So we are working through that. It has been a high priority. Barbara Leaf was in the region last week, meeting with foreign ministers and other leaders. As I said, as I noted, Tom Sullivan was there on Friday. Secretaries had a number of phone calls over the past couple of weeks to talk about these plans. And I don't want to put a timetable on them, other than to say it is critical that the work move forward, and that's what we are
Okay, and then just one question on the previous question she had about Trump's meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday. Are you guys concerned at all about the former president trying to influence the Prime Minister at a moment when there are these tense, high-stake negotiations to come to a ceasefire and hostage agreement?
I don't know what the former president will do, just as I don't know what any private citizen will do in a meeting with the Prime Minister or other officials with the government of Israel or any government. I would just say, speaking generally, that we would hope every American would.
But there's certain things he's allowed to do and not allowed to do.
Yeah, sure. But I'll just say we would hope that every American would find it in the interests of the United States to work towards a ceasefire, to work to get a ceasefire over the line, to work to get the American hostages home. Remember, there's still Americans who are held hostage, not just Israeli citizens, but Americans as well. And so we believe it's in the interest of everyone in the United States to try and reach a ceasefire that gets our hostages home, as well as ends the suffering of Palestinians, and of course that includes Palestinian Americans who are in Gaza, and helps us build better, broader security and stability for the region.
And can I just ask one clarifying question on that? The Hatch Act prevents citizens who don't have authority from the United States from directly or indirectly having correspondence with foreign governments to try and influence the measures or the conduct of those foreign governments.
Is that the Hatch Act or the
Logan Act? Sorry, it's the Logan Act. I'm thinking
my
Hatch
old
Act.
DOJ hat on here.
Yeah.
I still remember. I
Thank
remember
you.
little bits and pieces of it crawling around back
How
here
would
somewhere.
you guys know if the Logan Act was violated here, given you're not going to have any U.S. official in these meetings? Maybe you have a plan for getting a readout. Can you just explain to us how you know?
I think when it comes to any question about enforcement of U.S. law, I would defer entirely to the Justice Department. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment. Yeah, I'll come to you next, but go ahead, Thais.
Very quickly, I mean, we have witnessed before, I'm old enough to remember the Reagan campaign, and they actually did influence the hostage negotiations and so on, and they delayed them. I mean, there are examples where actually this happened, where, certain contenders do not believe that we have one president at a time. I think it's a situation that is probably, kind of critical for you guys.
Look, I'm not going to speak to a meeting between the former president and prime minister, but as I said, we would hope that no American citizen of any party would do anything to jeopardize the work to bring home American hostages who have now been held in captivity for over 9 months.
On the topic of presidents, with President Biden being done in 6 months,
Does the administration, thereby extension, the State Department, Anthony Blinken, are they at risk of losing any leverage of ending the war in Gaza or in freeing the hostages?
So the president is the president and brings in his conversations the full weight and authority and credibility and influence of the United States. And that has not changed, and that is not going to change as long as he's president, and the same goes for the Secretary of State. And so when we have conversations with foreign governments, we always make clear our position and the things that we are willing to do to stand by our position, and that will be the case.
If I may, if you'll indulge me, please, on Nicaragua, I know it's fully separate, but can I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Religious freedom in Nicaragua, a couple questions. You, sir, I'm sure you're familiar with it, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. They say religious freedom conditions in Nicaragua are getting worse, deteriorating. In fact, USERF is holding a virtual hearing tomorrow to discuss the situation in Nicaragua, religious freedom. First question, will the State Department be in attendance at that virtual meeting?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm happy to check and get back to you.
Two, USERF said recently, quote, Nicaragua's government continues to repress the Catholic Church for its human rights advocacy by arbitrarily arresting, imprisoning, and exiling clergy and lay people and shuttering and seizing the property of Catholic charitable and educational organizations. In fact, just recently Ortega shut down Radio Maria, Nicaragua. That all said, what more can the U.S. do right now, this moment, to help those in Nicaragua being persecuted for their faith?
So you have seen us on a number of occasions speak out about the persecution of religious figures in Nicaragua and call for the release of religious figures, and we will continue to do that.
Is Ortega listening?
I will say that it's not just something that we speak out on, but that we work with our partners in the region to accomplish. It is a high priority for us, the exercise of freedom of religion, both in Nicaragua and all around the world.
Thank you, Matt. Today, Secretary Blinken met with the Yazidi Society, the State Department, and the Yazidi communities since 10 years ago when they faced the genocide. They never been so vulnerable. Unable to go back to their homes, and also they are living in a dire situation and have become in the peace invasion. The so-called Shanghai Agreement has not and no longer been implemented. What's the U.S. position on the Yazidi situation in the region and also the Shanghai Agreement? Do you still have the faith in that agreement?
So we do believe that the Sinjar Agreement was an important start for supporting those targeted in the 2014 genocide committed by ISIS. But as you note, the agreement has not yet been fully implemented, which must be done in partnership with local communities, including the Yazidis. We continue to encourage the government of Iraq and the Kurdistan regional government to implement the tenets of the Sinjar Agreement, including security, governance, and reconstruction in Sinjar. The upcoming 10th anniversary of the ISIS genocide represents an important moment to demonstrate meaningful progress, and that's what the Secretary discussed with those with whom we met today.
I think you know that the Shingar is a disputed area between two groups, Mobile and Baghdad, and there are several militia groups have control over the area. And this has political infighting has prevented the reconstruction. So what role the U.S. can play in bringing the situation to an end?
So for protection for vulnerable ethnic and religious communities in Iraq has always been a priority for the State Department. Since 2018, the United States has provided over $500 million in assistance to religious and ethnic minority communities that were targeted for genocide. We provide a significant amount of U.S. humanitarian assistance on the basis of need, regardless of ethnic or religious affiliation in addition. And we continue to advocate for the security of Sinjar to be in the hands of federal police and Iraqi security forces, including the local police force established under the Sinjar Agreement.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is here, and there's a big protest planned for tomorrow outside the Capitol Hill. At the same time,
outside which building? The State Department?
Yeah. Hill, not the State
Oh, the Hill.
Yeah. At the same time, there are large groups expected in favor of Netanyahu also. The local media reports that there is a possibility of clash and disturbance on the streets of DC tomorrow. What are your thoughts on that? What's your message to the protesters coming here from different
So look, we, as you hear us say, when we talk about protests around the world, typically we from the State Department don't talk about domestic matters. There are other agencies inside the U.S. government that do so. But of course, We think all protests should be held peacefully. We support the right of Americans to protest. It's one of the things that makes America great and strengthens our democracy. And so people speaking their minds, either to United States government to United States government officials or to foreign government officials who are in town, we support people's right to do that. And of course, those protests in any event should remain peaceful.
The Pakistani government was deporting millions of Afghan refugees, but on the intervention of UN and United States, the Pakistani government extended their stay for 1 more year. What are your thoughts on this decision, and what is your comment on the situation of Afghan refugees in Pakistan?
Let me take that back and get you an answer.
So one last question.
Yeah.
So Pakistani, on the direction of the Pakistani government, the police raided the offices of the political party and arrested the spokesperson. They're also trying to ban this political party. You spoke about it last week, but what is your reaction on the raids on the offices of the political party and arrest of their spokesperson?
So we have seen the reports of the arrests of PTI leaders. We are always concerned when we see arrests of opposition leaders. I'm always personally concerned when I see the arrest of spokespersons. We support the peaceful upholding of constitutional and democratic principles, including the rule of law, equal justice under the law, and respect for human rights like freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly. And we urge that these principles be respected in accordance with Pakistan's constitution and laws. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. It's an everyone who are sitting here. My name is Nirunira. I'm from Bangladesh, and I'm proud Bangladeshi American, living in this country last 24 years. I live in New York. I come here to talk one thing: the running president in my country, what he is doing. The way we speak every time, thousands of students are killing, and especially women students, they got raped, killed under that prime minister we call illegal, which is true, he is illegal, unelected Prime Minister Hasina Sheikh. What he is doing in my country right now is my concern. I know that concern of USA, and always we believe is superpower, and I live in this country, and what I say, what I can help from you.
Beloved daughter, Daya. Hold on a little longer. Your mom.
Do you need information about the Colossi? completed preparations.
Hey, what are you playing?
Playing the first Ascendant. It's free to
Are
play.
you still playing that game?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Farming the.
Has the multiplayer? Is there multiplayer to it, like PvP?
There's no PvP. They'll probably do what Warframe did. I mean, they've talked about it. Well, you on to play Rocket League or what?
No, I downloaded Apex Legends, but from what Aaron was saying, like unless you have it on computer and you have keybinds bound up like in a specific way, it's almost impossible to.
I mean, you're fine, but I mean, it does help for sure, like with the sliding and stuff.
Yeah.
You gotta go potty.
What's it doing?
He's gotta go potty.
He does have worms, though.
Does he have one?
Oh, yeah. It was weird. It was flat. It was like flat, but short.
Oh, Aaron. When Snowy was over here, she was like, and she had like, it was just piles of worms.
Was it like pinworms?
No, they were like that long. Some of them were like thick too.
Like tapeworms?
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know. Yeah. I gotta. You don't have to get anything for a puppy. Hey, this cat. Wait, I have to order it off Chewy. Oh, is it down again? Yeah, Chewy.com can order them off soon off of it. It's it down again. So it's really much sick. Well,
Oh, you want to play some Apex?
No, I don't even have it downloaded anymore.
No, he's not. The kids deleted that game, the first Ascendant from the Xbox. So. Who was able to?
Man, those guys were bad. But yeah, this is pretty much just Destiny. Bro, it's free to play.
It reminded me of Destiny, but it was it's like third person, yeah, and just not as good. Not that it was bad. I don't think it was bad. It's just, you know, it was actually fun from what I played.
Yeah, we'll see if it like sticks around. I don't know if it will, but yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely like a 7. It's like not an amazing game, not a bad game, but
Someone probably worked really, really hard on it, so.
I mean, I've been playing the fuck out of it. I don't even know how many hours I got in, honestly.
You have quite a few hours in on it?
Yeah, I pretty much got all the Descendants in the game.
I didn't even realize you could unlock new characters and stuff.
Oh yeah, there's like 16 characters right now. Different abilities. Then there's ultimate versions of the normal versions of characters.
Oh yeah, so it gets deep like that. Yeah, I bet it is really fun.
And it's like it's such a grind though, because you have to like farm every one of your weapons, and you have to level them up. You have to farm the components, and it's a grind and a half.
Those grindy like sandbox games are kind of fun though, especially if you get into one, you get deep into it, you get into the community and stuff.
Yeah, which I mean, if it sticks around, I mean, I've got a good character, so. Fuck off me.
hospital today. But it's not in the same place. Ow! Get out! You know, that's just another spotted one.
Oh, come on now.
It was numbers that they didn't catch. There are sightings of seeing it with the mom out on CC, but we went to Luxury to find it. He looked so cute this morning, standing up, looking at me through his kennel. I'm gonna go upstairs, take a shower.
Come on.
Yeah, so you whine at night. You whine, baby, at no like science. You're cutting all damn day. What the fuck are you talking about? What is it? You hear that whine?
Well, I don't have Descendants to play. I don't have Rocket League either. I think I have Elden Ring and did all the good flavors. Elden Ring and not Call of Duty, of course, but did you see that Black Ops, the next Black Ops is gonna go back to round-based zombies?
I did see that, yeah. It'd be interesting. Oh no!
Today he's a big dog though. He fights the other dog pretty timid. No, he is scared.
Alright, well. I'll hop off here. If you decide to get on another game, though, hit me up and hop on. Play
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
well, I was actually gonna play Rocket League here in a minute.
It'd take me a minute to download it. Take a while to download it, probably. I don't know, I might download it here in a little bit. I'll let you know, I'll hop back in.
Alright, man. Well, hey, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too, peace out.
space-time fabric of the void is extremely illogical.
Jesus, this kills me bad. We can't just get easy Devourer games. You know what? We're here anyways.
If it's new research, I'm listening. so desperately.
Gotta go for the ball, homie. Still gotta go for it. Not cry. Oh, I really thought he was back there. Wow. I was actually gonna put it in, but hey, he wanted it, so he had it. He's only trying to be nice. Still nobody in the fucking moon. Good job.
What you gonna do with all that junk inside your trunk? I'ma get you drunk, get you
How are you feeling, sir?